Elastic Jobs runs as a cloud service in your Azure environment and allows you to execute T-SQL scripts across one or more databases in an elastic pool, a shard set, or a customer-defined database collection. Elastic Jobs can be scheduled as and when required. Job successes and failures are logged for troubleshooting, and you can also enable things like retries after a failure. Now, these jobs, as you can imagine, have a number of different uses. They seem to be very similar to SQL agent jobs that would run in an on-premises SQL server, but Elastic Jobs, they're commonly used for things such as database management. So they can be used for deploying schema changes across, running database maintenance jobs such as index rebuild, collecting database performance data, or updating reference data in a shard set. We can use these Elastic Jobs for reporting. They can be used to aggregate data from a shard set into a single reporting table. The reporting table can be fed then into Power BI or reporting services or any other reporting or visualization tool for creating reports. Now, normally you would have to connect each and every shard in a shard set to run the report query and then insert the data into a single reporting table. Elastic Jobs make it easier to do this, wherein you only have to schedule the T-SQL and it's automatically executed on the various shards. Elastic Jobs, they run as a cloud service in your Azure environment, and the diagram here illustrates the architecture and components of an Elastic Job. We look at this diagram from right to left. On the right hand side we have the shard set, the database set that we want to run these jobs against. Then in the middle section we've got the job service, which interacts with a control database that will launch and track jobs. Controller, a job execution task, which plugs in to Azure storage. The storage is used to for the logs to be stored for troubleshooting issues. And then we've got the Azure portal or PowerShell that we can use to add jobs to a control database, which could be an Azure SQL database. And this control database stores job metadata and state information. Now, there are four components that make up an Elastic Job. We touched on some of these in the diagram. We've got the control database. This is an Azure SQL database that stores job metadata and state information. The default service tier of the control database is standard S0. Then we've got the job service. This is an Azure cloud service. It's hosted in your Azure environment, and the job service is responsible for launching and track jobs. Then we have the Azure Service Bus. The Azure Service Bus is Microsoft's offering that allows a Microsoft service or an application to interact with other applications or services. In Elastic Jobs, the job service uses the Azure Service Bus internally for the coordination of work. Now, the Azure Service Bus wasn't shown in that diagram we saw on the previous slide. And then we have Azure Storage. Azure Storage is used to log diagnostic data resulting from the job execution, so it can be useful for troubleshooting and debugging purposes.